tap into your most original thinking, organize your ideas, and create the opportunities to launch your creative work. Unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity, where we travel around the world to creative capitals everywhere, talking to creative practitioners of all genres about how they get inspired and organize ideas, and most of all, how they gain the confidence and the connections to launch their work out into the world. And today's creative passport, we're stamping in Nashville, Tennessee, a creative capital certainly for music. And my guest is John Novello, Grammy award-winning jazz pianist and composer. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. My pleasure.
We're going to have a great conversation, not only about your music, but also how you've now taken some of those experiences and life learnings into your new book, The Invisible Architect. It's a fascinating transformational self-help book.
Yeah, I would have never thought would have happened.
I can't wait to hear how it did emerge. But let's start with your musical journey and evolution. As a musician, you were inspired to pursue jazz and composition, and certainly then rising to the status of a Grammy Award. It's been terrific. What inspired you along the way, especially at the beginning, to pursue music?
In hindsight, I believe our purposes have all been worked out pre-birth. That's just my own experiences, and we have to uncover them. And we have all kinds of tips and intuitions and gut feelings that we should pay attention to. When I was 3 years old, I saw an accordion player on TV, and I was sitting there with my parents, and for some reason, that was the first time The Invisible Architect, which later on I describe, was a voice in my head. It was clear as you and I talking, and it said, "Point to the TV." So at 3 years old, I just went, "Dad-oo," and my parents figured that meant I wanted to study the accordion. It wasn't really the accordion, but I saw a keyboard. So eventually, a few years later, I started studying the accordion, and I liked the idea of music and being able to organize and play music, and especially got bit when I was 13. I played an Italian party, played the accordion, and I was sitting there. First job I ever had, was enforced by my parents I should go do this. And I was playing the accordion, imagining about 150 boisterous Italians partying and ignoring this 13-year-old. And I felt very self-conscious, and my uncle comes over and he says, "Hey, don't you know how to get people's attention, for God's sake? Do you know the tarantella?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Stand up and play it and watch what happens." I stood up and went, and I started playing it. Unbelievable. All of a sudden, all these 100 people, their heads turned. They came over, they started dancing in a train. And later on in the evening, I got paid, and I went, I get to have the powerful feeling of making people happy and dance, and they pay me. Maybe it's something I should pursue, and that's what started the whole thing.
And this power to, well, it's entertaining for sure, but it's to engage the audience. And I can't help but think that those same principles continued along your career until you had this #1 Billboard smooth jazz hit, Good to Go. Same idea, right? It's like the audience needs to hear this.
Yeah, exactly. I eventually got lucky in the small town I was in, Erie, Pennsylvania. It doesn't really have much of a music situation, so you would think it would be hard to be discovered. I think I was blessed because a famous producer traveled from New York City to Cleveland on Route 90, and you have to go by Erie, Pennsylvania, by the way. And it was a snowstorm that was so bad, the drifts were so bad, he pulled over to the Ramada Inn right off of 90. And my band, which was one of the top cover bands in the area, playing all the R&B songs and rock songs and everything, he came down to the lobby bar just to have a drink, and he saw my band playing, and he flipped. And he was a famous producer. At the time, he was producing a rock group called the Outsiders, and they had a big tune called "Time Won't Let Me."
Mm-hmm.
And he came up to me and said, "Are you the leader?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you signed?" I didn't even know what he meant. Signed me. He said, to a record deal. I said, I don't know. And he goes, we are now. And we cut to the chase. 3 weeks later, we got a contract in the mail, got a record deal, and started driving up to Cleveland to do a record. And we released a single first. That's what they did in those days to see if it did well. And it did really well. It was in the top 5 or something. And we were about to go do the rest of the album. And I never thought there was any kind of struggle related to music because everything was happening so easy. And then the next thing you know, the singer got drafted. Those were the days of the draft.
Yes.
And once they take your lead singer, the politics is over. The band is non-existent. Even though I was the leader, did all the writing and arranging, the lead singer is the front man. So they canceled it. And that was devastating to me. And I had to recover from that. But in hindsight, I knew that that was like the creator of all slapping me upside the head saying, you got more work to do. And I eventually did some research, recovered, went to Boston, Berklee School of Music, and studied with all the greats. And then I got lured to go out to California. And that's where my career really started.
Mm-hmm. And this idea, certainly no coincidences. There was a reason that guy got caught in a snowstorm.
Absolutely.
He needed to meet. And later, of course, the coincidence of meeting Donna Summer while she was on tour and then joining up with her band. Again, you could say it was luck.
Yeah, you could say I was luck, but there's so many of these, of which 20 of them I talk about in my book, because the subtitle of my book is How to Design Your Perfect Life from Within. And as we think and believe within, so without. And that's really what the book is about, to control your thoughts and your desires and how to design your life from within so you create the world without. And if the world without is not something you want, then let's not examine the world without us, let's examine the world within. The orchestrations were going on, and I was in Japan with The Taste of Honey, and I was the musical director for that band, and we had a hit song called Get Down Boogie. Now, this is funny.
Love that song.
This is funny because I'm a jazz guy, and that would be the last thing that I'd want to play. It's a disco tune. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying. And so here I am in Japan with Al Jarreau, Manhattan Transfer, Donna Summer, Taste of Honey, Rita Coolidge, all these 10 top R&B artists. And I went downtown to the wharfs to get some food because I was told by the concierge that was the great place to have real authentic traditional Japanese food. So I took the subway down to the wharfs, and on the way back, I walked out of the restaurant, and it was getting dark, and no cell phone, no Uber, no cabs in a wharf village, and I could see Tokyo 10 miles in the distance, skyscrapers, and I said, I guess I'm going to hit walking toward Tokyo. And I thought out loud, why didn't I take the band limo? What was I thinking? I really need a limo now. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye and my ear to the right, I heard, hey, mister, do you need a ride? And I turned around, and it was a big stretch limo, and Donna Summer's head stuck her head out the window. And we didn't know each other, but she had seen me during rehearsal during the day. So she was wondering what this white boy was doing.
Yes, out in the war.
Yeah. So then I got to ride back 45 minutes with her, got to be good friends. And that evening we played together in the Tokyo Prince Hotel bar because we weren't playing that. And then next year she asked me to join her band.
That's a great story. Listeners, we're talking to John Novello, Grammy-winning jazz pianist and composer. And we've been talking about music, but we're almost now to the turn where you say, after the successful music career, and now you're writing a personal growth and spiritual development book. It seems like an interesting divergence from all the music business, but yet I see the stepping stones towards it in your stories.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you think about it, learning and mastering an instrument and having a successful career in the music industry is really challenging. Only a few people go after it. And it takes a lot of discipline to even become good and competitive. And then even once you're competitive, most musicians don't ever make it, and they have side jobs, and it's very difficult. So to become successful, you really have to get your head screwed on straight, which means a lot of study, not only of music, but of mindset disciplines. And so I was always a fan of philosophy and metaphysics and all these kinds of things. And I'm not realizing while I was studying those that they would be a platform for me later. I was just doing it for personal survival reasons. And one day, about 4 or 5 years ago, I woke up and my inner voice, which I call the invisible architect, so people could think of that as their higher self, their intuition, God, Jesus, whatever, doesn't really matter. My higher self, the invisible architect, says, you need to write a book. And I had already written many books, mostly in music industry, teaching contemporary keyboards. So I knew how to write a book, but I went, what do you mean? You need to write a book about your relationship with me, your higher self. And I didn't even know where to begin with that. It was almost like an order. I was commanded to pay it.
Not just a call, but the order. Yes.
Yeah. And if I didn't do it, all manner of things could happen to me. That's what it, I started writing an outline of all the things that I had studied, and the book was coming together, and I didn't know what to call it. It was bugging me to write a book without having a title. And then one day I was on the internet, and on the side you get little different promotions. There was a promotion about some guy who was an architect who had a style of architecture that he called invisible architecture, kind of architecture that blended in and smooth, which had nothing to do with music. But when I saw the words invisible architecture, the invisible architect sort of tapped me on my shoulder and said, there you go. And I went, invisible architecture? He goes, no, invisible architect. And I went, oh, what a great name. Because God is invisible and in the architect of all. And that makes sense. And later on, I figured out the subtitle. Well, that's how it started.
I love the backstory. John, if you have a book handy, I'd love for you to read an excerpt to give people an idea of the tone and style and how you put your story together.
Yeah, I really like the front cover.
I love that cover. It's so colorful. Yeah.
Yeah, eventually I got the subtitle, How to Design Your Perfect Life. And originally it was How to Design a Better Life from Within. And the architect got mad at me. Said, no, perfect life. And that's a bit steep. I don't know if I want to be responsible for promoting a perfect life. Nobody had. And the architect kind of said, well, my PR is I'm all knowing and all perfect and all loving and all powerful. So if we're going to move towards anything, let's move towards perfection. And it demanded, and we did it. This is a section called Guarding Your Mind. Cognition 11. Instead of chapter, I call it cognition because it's a realization. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character because they become your destiny. So that's the quote by Buddha. And that's what started me into this chapter of be, do, have. Instead of have, do, be, most humans, I say that with tongue in cheek, focus on have. If I had money, I'd be able to do this, and I became this. Or if I had the connection, if I was the son of Bill Gates, I could do. So it's backwards. In actual fact, people that are successful, they have a desire, be what they want to be, and they actually envision and imagine and see that beingness already done in the physical universe, which then pulls them forward. So they're doing this, their action starts aligning, and eventually that dream comes true in the physical universe, and there's your have. So that's what this book is about, is any cause yields the corresponding effect, always. Correct cause yields the desired effect, always. So a lot of people go, that's just the law of attraction, but they don't apply the law of attraction. And that's because they don't realize that the law of attraction is really a law of cause and effect, and it's always working. You just have to make sure that your be is correct and disciplined and not alloyed. I want to be a great jazz musician, and somebody goes, that's pretty much impossible, or you have to have a talent. In other words, all of a sudden your be becomes alloyed, so you don't go be do have, you go be do, and something else happens, and you think, I'm not talented, it doesn't work. So that chapter is all about making sure that you clarify your be and then learn how to control your thoughts. So the whole book is about learning how to control your thoughts, because we are within without is within. And so once you control your thoughts and have discipline, you can pretty much create any beingness and move towards a havingness rather than being befuddled why your current situation isn't working. Then don't worry about the current situation. Let's go back and clarify your being.
Mm. John, you bring up this current situation. I can only think of the listeners, the musicians looking for an agent or this break or being discovered, the authors who say, if I only had a publisher and an agent, the filmmakers, I just need to get to a festival. He's always, you got discovered. What about me? But you're talking about the B. What are some of these practical applications that we as creatives can tap into to make those laws work for us?
Exactly. And that led me into another new part of my life, because once I wrote the book and it became an Amazon #1 bestseller, I went, great, I can go back in my music and collect the royalties and I feel good. But then the invisible architect said, no, you're responsible for helping people. People don't just read books and instantly duplicate, understand, and apply. Why don't you start one-on-one helping people in this area of metaphysics and self-help and whatever? And I already had experience as a teacher, thousands of hours of one-on-one teaching, and I knew that's the only way you could teach music. If you taught it at all, it had to be one-on-one, not group. So then I realized the same thing. So I started my, what I call, one-on-one elite perfect life mentor program based on the fundamentals of the book. So to answer your question, when I work with people one-on-one, the first thing I do is find out what their B's are that haven't been achieved. What are the situations in their life they're struggling with that they haven't achieved? So we write all those down, pick one of the most urgent ones, and then we go through the fundamentals of my book, where I show them how you actually have to change any desired goal into a completed action. So example, if you wanted to be a really good jazz musician, instead of the goal, you would change it into I am, because I am is the word of God. I am, let there be light. I am a great jazz musician. Now the mind will push back right away and say, yeah, nice try. You're in denial. You can barely play a C major scale. So you have to learn how to control the mind. And I use the law of thought substitution. So whenever the mind pushes back with contrary thoughts against your B, you have to learn how to control those thoughts. So the whole book and the whole one-on-one mentoring is about how you create what you wanted that haven't achieved, that you're struggling, and state as already completed. Whatsoever you shall thinketh, what you shall believeth in your heart, you shall receive. So it's a biblical principle, but most people don't know how to apply it in their life because they don't have spiritual drills and fundamentals and somebody to guide them. So that's how you get around that. And even when I look back, even though I was blessed, I also paid attention to my inner self. And I did, when I said, pointed to that keyboard, I didn't just point to that keyboard in my mind. I actually did that unknowingly. I am a great keyboard player, and I pointed to that, and that's what started the whole.
Yes. John, there's a couple of well-known concepts associated with jazz. I wanted to ask you how they fit into this. One is improvisation, the other is collaboration. This idea of going off the sheet music, going off out of the box. Do you have to try new things? Do you have to trust your gut and improv a little bit sometimes?
That's why I ended up eventually, even though I started off with soul and R&B and rock, there's some improvisation in there, but not as much as jazz is more of self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be at one with yourself and trust yourself to go off the deep end. And I like that. And so I started studying jazz and the various licks and scales and things that go into that genre. But in the end, it's really self-expression. Like, how do you feel? So when you're playing, if you're feeling funky and bluesy, then you maybe go, and you have to feel that, and you have to be comfortable with being naked and putting that out there, even though, hey, you may get a bad review, somebody may throw a beer can at you, and somebody may stand up and give you a standing ovation. You can't think of that. You have to just go in the zone and be one with yourself. So improvisation which is why I think I got into self-help and metaphysics philosophy later, because studying that helped me become more one with myself and have enough self-love to trust myself and have faith to just jump off the deep end and let it fly. And after a while, I started realizing when I really let it go, there are no mistakes. Just what I'm doing.
Interesting.
Now people are liking what I'm doing. As a matter of fact, with my other band, Niacin, with Billy Shane and Dennis Chambers, which is like a super improv progressive fusion group, the audience eggs us on. Go for it. Go for it. They want us to go way over our skis and off the deep end. And so when the audience is pulling for you to do that, it's even better.
Mm-hmm. And the other idea is collaboration. Like you've got to work with the group and attract the people and be surrounded with the right people. What does the invisible architect technique and principle say about the people around you?
You do have to, even if you're the CEO of a business, you have to have an employee part of your company that goes out and seeks the right people for the various jobs, right? So when you're in a band, you want to find the right musicians, the right drummer who's competent to play your material and likes your material, and the right bass player and the sax player. And you have to learn how to grant them beingness to allow them to bring to the table their improvisation and their talent. And then we all sort of collaborate. And once we're all on the same frequency, then the improvisation takes, it becomes even, it's like a syllogism. The whole becomes greater than the parts. Look at the Beatles. Individually, yeah, they're good musicians, but they're not, I think, monsters. But then they got together and they created this monster group with monster songs. So that becomes bigger than their individual components. So collaboration not only works with fellow musicians, but in the end, that's what my book is about. We are not the power. The architect is the power. And the way we design our life is we network with the architect, tell it's our desires, and the architect is the power. We're a distributor of the power. So we're collaborating with this, I call it quantum intelligent energy field that's very willing to help us achieve our desires. Only we invite it into our life and know how to connect with it.
So good. Listeners, my guest is John Novello, Grammy Award-winning jazz pianist and composer, but also we've been talking about his latest book, The Invisible Architect, How to Design Your Perfect Life from Within. John, where can we connect with you and learn more about your work and then also find the book?
Exactly. The best way is to go to my author website, which is my name, johnnovelloauthor.com. And there's various places in there where you can go to my book and records and things in order. You could also go to Amazon.com and type in The Invisible Architect, John Novello, and get it that way. And then if they want to hook up with me mentoring-wise, I have another website, which is my mentor site, which is similar, go.johnnovelloauthor.com/register. And if they go to that site, they can communicate with me by email, by text, and watch a video about what my one-on-one mentorship is. Because really, I hate to call it a business, but I'm now in the business of helping people achieve their perfect life. And I can say that with honesty now. And I really love it almost more than music. Music is fantastic and I love it. But in the end, all it's doing is entertaining and inspiring people, which is great. Not fine. I made a living that way. But now I can work with people one-on-one or through my book and not only inspire them, but help them hook up to the energy, the intelligent energy that permeates everything, and help them design a better life one-on-one using the principles of my book. So I'm very excited about this new endeavor.
Yeah, you should be. It's exciting. Listeners, I'm going to put all those links that John just mentioned in the show notes so they're easy for you to find and connect with. Well, John, as a musician, and I love music too, I'm always looking for new recommendations. I'm curious, is there a song on your playlist right now that you're loving that you could recommend to us?
God, I love so many musicians and artists and composers, but one of my biggest discoveries a few years ago was a Cuban pianist named Gonzalo Rubalcaba, Rubalcaba. And I would say he's the Franz Liszt or the Vladimir Horowitz of jazz piano. If there was a battle of the pianists, he would win every time
Love
in
it.
every area. And he just is an amazing pianist, an amazing composer, and you should check him out. Because
Thanks for the recommendation. We'll certainly look it up. Thank you to John Novello for being the guest. John, thanks for being on the show.
thanks for having me.
It's been a blast. And listeners, I think you've taken a lot away about the invisible architect, this inner work that we need to do. Yes, there's a lot of luck and being in the right place in the right time and meeting the right people, all the things that we think about as creatives. But sometimes we've got to prepare for that, lay the foundation for that, be available to those. How many times have we heard the story of, I met somebody, but I blew it off? That could have been a divine intervention, and you looked the other way. So we've learned a lot from John today. So come back again next time. We've stamped the Creative Passport today in Nashville, Tennessee, where we're going to continue our around-the-world journeys talking to creatives everywhere about how to get inspired and organize our ideas, but most of all, how to make the confidence and the connections to launch our work out into the world.
Thank you.
So until next time, I'm Mark Stinson, and we're unlocking your world of creativity.
Unlocking Your World of Creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This program was produced by BSB Media, creators of IntelliKey Leadership Stories, Unlocking Your World of Creativity, and the Peace Room. Love.